The elections are not what I would consider credible, free, transparent, or fair.
So guys, the man you just heard him speak is the former president of Nigerian Bar Association and senior advocate of Nigeria, Barrister Gbakoba. This man, this video is a whole long video because it's a long interview actually, but if you listen to it, you will learn a lot in our country, Nigeria, and you understand why this election was rigged. You understand a lot of things going on in the INEC, in the judiciary, and in the Senate all together. And so I will join you and congratulate you who have watched it to the end, and I bet you learn a lot from it and understand why you should not kill yourself. I am very sorry to say that those obedience, those who support peterobi, those who support Atiku, and perhaps I don't know how you feel after watching this video to the end actually, because this man dealt to the major issues concerning Nigeria, and in fact are more real. He touched on the judiciary, why we need to amend some things. In fact, there are a lot. You just need to hear him. He's a former president of Nigerian Bar Association. You know how it is to be on that high post. So let me allow you to watch the video, then we'll analyze it at the end of it. Okay, so please don't forget to subscribe if you are new, and please help share this video so that YouTube will recommend it to a lot of people out there.
The elections are not what I would consider credible, free, transparent, or fair. And I say this in the context of the Electoral Act that set out clear technological parameters, which even the INEC chair was mouthing and boasting. In fact, at the point he gave a press conference to say that those who say that we shall not be technologically driven in this election, it's all fake news. But it turned out that all what he said wasn't true, because the elections were absolutely bungled. You know, the deployment of the, technological things that he said would happen failed. If it had worked, maybe, but that's what happened. They just said failed across Nigeria, and it failed only in respect of the presidential and not the national, assembly election. So that throws up a lot of, why did this work here and it didn't work there? I personally didn't feel good nor satisfied about the outcomes, and that's why you have petitions. It's not surprising that Alhaji Atiku, peterobi, and I think 2 or 3 other presidential candidates have gone to court. So we have to wait for the court to make a pronouncement as to what they think were the reasons why these petitions have been lodged.
So in your own estimation, you don't think that there was substantial compliance with the Electoral Act?
Well, you see, that question is tricky, because in the history of presidential petitions, not a single petition has been overturned. The closest was when the Supreme Court split 4-3, and I might remind you that one of the Supreme Court justices, late Pat Sachalono, made a very profound statement in Buhari 2. Buhari had 3 petitions. He said, looking at the legal framework of Nigeria's electoral law and the number of witnesses required to be called, I doubt any presidential candidate can ever win a petition, because the bulk of evidence and the burden required to satisfy the court that you were the person who should have been declared the lawful winner is so heavy, and the time frame, in my view, is insufficient. Which is why in the Waste panel, which I was a member, we said INEC must be impartial. The big problem is INEC's culpability and also being a defendant. So in the petitions that have been filed, the key defendant will be INEC, not Tinubu, or anybody else, which is wrong. The duty of INEC is to say to the court, here are the documents, and INEC withdraws. But INEC is actually an active defendant, and INEC obviously would want to show that the elections were conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the Electoral Act. That's the problem. Had the OWA's recommendations been legislated, we would be in this problem. But it's in the interest of those who run elections, politicians, not to have it passed. So they've sat on it in the National Assembly. That's number one. Second thing that I now notice is that National Assembly actually told us a lie. Even me got caught up with the misrepresentation that the National Assembly made. I thought that the representation of National Assembly in respect of electronic voting had consequences. It has no consequence. So if you didn't use beavers and so what, the electoral framework allows two parallel processes, manual, electronic. So I could hear INEC say, well, okay, it failed, and so what? It failed, but don't forget we were doing manual collation. And that manual collation is exactly what you scan onto the BVACs. So what are you talking about? So what is the difference between the manual scan and the electronic scan? Those are going to be the challenging issues that INEC will present. And INEC, in my view, will present it strongly because they see themselves as, oh, we have a duty to defend the elections we conducted. But if that burden wasn't on them, then they will have it, they will tell the truth. But I don't know in any petition from the time of 1999, well, I don't know about this one, that INEC has not absolutely been dishonest. That's it. That's the problem. And I've seen in past petitions where INEC and the respondent are working together. How can you win? How are you going to win? How are you going to win?
So the body should have been on INEC to show.
As a neutral body. The court will summon INEC to say, yes, you conducted these elections, tell us what happened. But INEC is not a party. So INEC will now bring everything. There will be no burden to defend it, with their sweat and blood. There will be no burden to lie. They say, yes, in this one, here's what happened, and the court can see it from a neutral witness. But if INEC is a party, it changes the picture. That's the problem.
Now that attention has shifted to the courts, the tribunal, can I ask if you're representing any of the parties in any of the petitions?
Why should I tell you that? I think that's personal to me.
When the Electoral Act was passed, it was hailed as a game changer, by some commentators. But as things turned out, and as you've also alluded to, these elections cannot be said to have ranked better than previous ones. Yeah. So where do you think that we're getting it wrong? Is it in the laws, the people to implement the laws, or even the people on whom the laws are supposed to serve?
It's INEC. They are the ones who operate the electoral law. So, and that's the point that I'm making. That it's not so much the technology that really is the problem. It's the electoral management body. I mean, in Oasis time, when we sat, we did our best to make INEC absolutely independent. Part of what we recommended, some have been done. But INEC is still going to National Assembly begging for money or to the president. So they're not independent. So there's a way in which you would say that INEC is not in the middle. It's not in the middle. It's always tilting in favor of the party in power. And if it does so, then you are unable to unravel the huge amounts of evidence required to overturn what INEC had done. And it doesn't help when you put in this issue of substantial compliance. What does it mean, really? I don't understand what it means. So are you going to say to me, if I show evidence that the elections have been so badly conducted, the courts then ask me, okay, how does it affect you personally? That's what the courts always say. The Supreme Court has said, show me how it affected you personally. That's a very high burden. So unless we implement the recommendations of OWAS, we're not likely to see free and fair elections in a long time. INEC must be absolutely independent. We've tried the one where INEC is manual, no technology. There were problems. Okay, we've tried technology now with beavers and IREV and all those acronyms. It didn't work. It failed. So what, therefore, is the problem? The other thing to say is, should INEC actually be doing all it's doing? It's not doing far too many things. It prints ballot papers. It's the referee. It just, to give you the analogy of a football match, the referee in a football match just comes with a whistle. He goes into the pitch and he regulates the football match between A and B. He's not responsible for cutting the grass, painting the field white, marking the 6 and the 12 and the 18-yard box, making sure the nets are all good. That's not his job. INEC is overburdened. And I think that the next challenge would be to say INEC's vast responsibility, security, it is Nigeria's largest printer. INEC should leave all that. Let it just put the whistle in the mouth and get its work done. So I think that's another problem. So because of the type of personnel. Yeah, I mean, you saw the collation centers. This thing was like 100 years ago, where some professor is reading something that he can barely read. This is all digitally controlled. After he's read, say, okay, how many overvoting did you have? Come on, the guys would come from their collation centers. Everything is tabulated. So we need to find people who understand logistics. A lot of what happens is logistics, and digital experts. Professor, with due respect to him, what is his qualification to be chairman of INEC? I don't know. What's his qualification? So we now have to start to think, if we want to have a good and efficient electoral management body, then we're going to ask who are best qualified. The thing should be full of digital top experts, IT people, so that they are able to even produce the results in 2 hours. If you had a vote, it's counted in the polling unit. What is the difficulty of getting the results known in 5 minutes? Because what INEC claimed was that we'll see it real time, live. If the MBA can do it, can you imagine? Let me use my time. When I ran as MBA president, we began the voting process, I think about 3 p.m. and finished the following day, because everything was manual. But once this guy introduced the digital process, I voted from Malta, and I could see the results, real time. If INEC can emulate the MBA process, that's the end of it. There'll be absolutely no complaint. So in situations where there is a failure of the network, there's an offline capture. I can scan something into my phone, but it might not go. But the results are there. And this is what I say would be the role that experts, not us, I'm not an expert, this is the role that experts can play in determining how to take the votes of one person and collate with the second person and get a national result. I don't think it's rocket science. So overall, my overall assessment of the process was that INEC absolutely bungled. Absolutely. I don't even talk about the issue about lateness. Some places they came even at 3 p.m. What do you say to that? And the problem is the logistical nightmare is beyond INEC's capacity. Pushing all those materials. You need people who understand logistics, not INEC. INEC has no skills in logistics. So those are the things I think we need to look at and hope. Because for me, 2023 elections, I think they're in the grave already.
How confident are you that our courts will do justice in these petitions?
I've lost a bit of confidence in what the courts have been doing lately. I mean, there was a time you could say, on the facts and the law, this is the likely outcome. Today you cannot, because there have been all kinds of silly decisions. The most silly was that concerning the President of the Senate, who, in order to become Nigerian president, rushed off to buy a ticket to be a presidential candidate of the APC, and that meant he did not take part in the senatorials. Lo and behold, he lost. He now ran back after the horse had bolted, clearly to anybody who has any brain, including the justices of the Supreme Court, I might add, and they said no, that the man actually should be the senatorial candidate. That is the most ridiculous decision I've ever heard that the Supreme Court had delivered. So that's why it's difficult. Of course, I don't want to talk about the case of Imo State, where everything was turned upside down. So I don't have the sort of confidence that I used to have in the judiciary, and I've not been surprised if this thing goes one way or the other. I cannot forecast the outcome. I have the legal tools and the factual issues, so if I put it into my computer, I know what answer it will give me. But I'm not part of the panel, so I don't know whether the justices will see it the way I'm seeing it. But I can tell you, from my own perspective as a lawyer of 45 years at the bar, that the answers are glaringly obvious. But as Oliver Wendell Holmes said in the Raleigh School of Jurisprudence, it is the prophecy of what the court does in fact, and nothing more pretentious. That is the law. So if you ask me what will be the outcome of the petition, first of all, I cannot say because it's sub judice. But second of all, I cannot even say because the Supreme Court itself is unpredictable. It ought to be predictable, which is why people are now beginning to question. There's a new school of thinking coming up to say, should the Supreme Court really be final? See what they're causing now? Should they be final, or should their decisions now be subject to parliamentary review? It's an argument that is now growing in judicial circles. The confidence that is eroding for people to begin to think, what the hell, can't we do something to these people? That's what's happening. 7 men just come out, sit down on the chair and read something, and we say, okay, that governor is sacked. Why? Who are these people? It should be taken seriously. That would not have happened 20 years ago. When these men come out, you fear them when you see them come out. And when they speak without fear or favor. Is it the same thing now? I don't know.
Alright guys, thanks for watching to this point. So at this point, having listened to him, what do you think Nigeria need to do? Like seriously, I was very let me try side or what to, and I feel very sorry for those who go to courts, because I'm not actually happy. But based on the fundamentals which this son has highlighted, what do you think? Does Peter Obi has hope of winning this election in court, or does he have hope that this will be nullified? Does Atiku Abubakar have hope? Those who are in the front line in court that took their petition to court. So the supporters, I believe you are one of them, or probably even if you are not, what is your view about it? Like, because this man has highlighted what even the judiciary has failed in some decision in recent time they have made. How can we amend it? Because he said that he has tried his best during their time to let INEC be completely, absolutely independent, but yet they are not, because they bow down to the ruling party, which they cannot defend. And for me, this man has just highlighted the problem of Nigeria, why election, and this, if it is not solved, definitely we are still going to have a corrupt practice in election process in 2027. And like I'm talking now, I'm not very, of course, a lot of people will not vote. Even me, it is courage that I took to vote for this the governorship, because presidential election in Lagos, where I tried to vote, the thugs came and disrupted and were unable to vote. But because I'm just like zealous to exercise my franchise, I have to take courage and then go again to vote in the presidential, in the governorship election. So guys, please let me know what you just think. Does Peter Obi really have hope? Does Atiku has hope based on petition they filed? Because the question now is, these people are saying go to court, and then does it mean they have their grounds in court already, or does it mean they have seen how unfair and how the Supreme Court now, it is not trusted, that they are referring go to court. So please just drop your comment.